Paul Homchick, John Emmett, Graham Sweeney, Pedro Foiling Sailor. Good morning, sir, to you in Sydney, Australia. Homchick's presumably here in the Bay Area. Emmett's in South America, in Argentina. Graham Sweeney in Shetland and Scotland. And welcome to all of you signing on for our show number 673. We are in Studio B, as usual, here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. We report at the top of the show on the sad news of the passing of Lucy Jewett. Thierry de Jong, our Dutch friend in SoCal, is with us. John Emmett observing it is the last show of the year. So let's get this one through the starting line. Hi everybody, welcome to show number 673 for Tuesday the 26th of December, our Boxing Day here on this side of the world. Our last show of the year because we're not going to do a show this Friday or next Tuesday. But thank you for joining us for today. Julia, I trust you are well.
Indeed.
You've got a scarf on, thank goodness.
Oh, I wouldn't dare go with that one.
We don't want to be, well, you do sometimes, and then I get criticized.
Uh-huh.
Mary Jude Szymanski saying hello and Happy New Year from Philadelphia. In the great state of Pennsylvania, Rich Fishbeck down in Southern California, saying hi to you, Julia.
Hi,
Hola,
Rich.
Julia.
Yeah.
Not saying hi to me, you notice.
Never mind.
You're way more popular.
No.
Greg Phillips, greetings from the Gold Coast of Australia. Andy Armstrong, hi, there's a new name. Hi, Andy, from Hampton, Virginia. I sailed a Sunfish North Americans off the beach in Hampton, Virginia, many years ago. Peter Taylor, New York City. Peter Worcester saying happy Boxing Day. To us, Gordon Smith in Denmark. He was on the show. He made a comment on the show last night, Julie. That was a fun show that we did.
Yes.
It was the annual
Yes.
start of the Fastnet race. And, you know, we didn't stream it.
No.
We did it as a private show.
Yep.
On Zoom, but a lot of people were co-streaming it to their own YouTube channel, their own Facebook pages. I just didn't, I didn't want to risk a copyright strike from anybody, and it's the end of the year, but besides having that private Zoom show and being able to go to the people on Zoom for comments, as
able to talk is nice.
Clark Chapin,
Yeah.
Gordon Smith, any number of others commented last night. It was good fun. Julia, we have C here in the back.
Yes.
This show is not being sponsored by Mount Gay, but as the last show of the year, maybe a new tradition,
Okay.
I have not only some Mount Gay, but I have eggnog in which to put the Mount Gay,
Lovely.
or Mountain Gay, as our bartender here at the Beach Street Yacht Club calls it. I can go over to camera two. I think we can get that better on that shot, especially if I get rid of the TBJ, as I call that lower third. Oh, how much do you want?
A shot.
Well, that's
That's enough.
there you go. And I didn't stir it, so you may want to stir that with something.
My finger.
I'm sorry, this is not a proper studio. I'll have a little bit, just a bloody splash, tiny splash.
That's all you're allowed.
That's all I'm allowed. And cheers.
Cheers.
Happy New Year, our last show of yet another year, our sixth year.
Sixth year.
Sixth year, yeah, 2017. Eggnog and Mount Gay. We start the show with a memory
Maybe a toast.
and a toast to this. I'm going to put her picture up here, Julia.
Okay.
She just passed away since our last show.
Yeah.
The Grande Dame, as I said in the show notes, of the America's Cup, Lucy Jewett, and we will raise a toast to her at the end of this segment. Peter Stoneberg, Commodore Stoneberg, St. Francis Yacht Club sent us a note this morning. We'd heard about her passing in the last 24 hours or so. She passed away actually on Friday. And Commodore Stoneberg said it's with great sadness to report that Lucy Jewett passed away on December 22nd. She lived up the hill from us here in Pacific Heights. She was a passionate, enthusiastic, and generous supporter of many things, including, and I might add, especially sailing in the America's Cup. Her late great husband, George Fritz, better known as Fritz Jewett, was a major supporter. The two of them were for years and years and years.
Of the New York Yacht Club.
Well, New York Yacht Club and St. Francis Yacht Club.
Yes.
And Golden Gate Yacht Club even, and San Diego Yacht Club, all four of the American teams.
Yeah, great.
She, like I, was proud to be a supporter of and only of American challengers. You too, the same, over the many years. And she started back in '77 supporting Ted Turner's campaign, she and Fritz. They ended up owning, I think, Intrepid for a while. And Julia, you replied to Peter this morning, I saw in your comment, indeed, she attained well-earned legendary status in her own time. We were fortunate to have known her.
Yep.
Indeed, we were. She's was inducted in the America's Cup Hall of Fame back in the early, 2000 something.
Yeah. A nice picture.
Is that a great picture?
Yes.
That's, where and when?
Well, no, not really.
87. On the plane coming, I was not on the
back.
plane, but that's the plane, Dennis Connor's team coming back, Stars and Stripes, after having won the 87 Cup in Perth and Frio.
Yes.
And she was very, very proud of that effort. Spent a lot of time down there living in Fremantle and WA. Actually, they lived up in Cottesloe, I think. Here is Lucy with Dennis, DC, in the 92 campaign in San Diego. That's, you can see USA 11 on his team jacket there. She supported Dennis through the 88 and the 92 campaign. And Lucy,
forever.
Well, not forever. She grew a little disaffected after the 92 campaign, actually. You'll like this next photo, Julia. It's not a great photo of any of us, but there's Lucy with her perennial cranberry and soda at the corner of the St. Francis Yacht Club bar, actually where I met you and your late husband. That's Conrad
and there we are.
And that's a shot from 2012 taken by one of the bartenders at St. Francis using somebody's iPhone.
Yeah.
And she was not a barfly by any means, but I think I'd had dinner with her that night upstairs and dragged her down. And
she didn't want to sit at the bar.
She was not, that's right, she was not amused, was she?
No.
Tom.
And it's okay.
Tom.
I'm going to be right here.
I'll sit here for a minute, but take me home. And her chauffeur was waiting outside. And
yeah.
in those days, I was going with her to, George, her late husband, had passed by then, and Fritz Jewett. And I spent a fair bit of time with her, and it was great fun. Really spending that time. She was a big supporter of a lot of charitable institutions here in San Francisco, including the ballet.
Yes, I worked with her on a lot of her big
charitable projects.
Yeah.
This is from the 2013 Cup. She was a big supporter of the hosting of the Cup here. There's Mark Buell, who was one of the co-chairs of the America's Cup organizing committee here in San Francisco. Lucy was a big supporter of that, held numerous fundraisers with two of her favorite sailors, Paul Kayard, of course, and Russell Coots. She took ill a few years back. I haven't seen her now in 2 or 3 years, maybe a touch longer than that even, but she did finally pass away, sadly, on Friday. Lucille M. Jewett, USA, 1929 to 2023. May she rest in peace. Okay, Julia, now shall we raise a toast in her memory of our eggnog and Mount Gay?
Indeed.
She would approve. She would approve. She approved of this show. Too bad I never got her on the show. It would have been good to sit her in the chair and have her Because she was a great raconteur. She could tell great stories, couldn't she?
Yes.
She tells a story about having dinner with Ted Turner in Newport the night that he'd had one of the nights he'd had too much.
Yeah.
And ended up slipping under the table.
Oh, right.
As he was famous for. He did that at the press conference.
I remember that.
And it wasn't that after he won in '77, it was in the old Armory, which is now the Sailing Hall of Fame and the Sailing Museum. Yeah. There on Lower Thames Street in Newport, and he slipped they thought he had slipped under the table, but he didn't. He'd actually went down under the table to get a bottle of aquavit and brought it back up, and he was his drink of choice at the time. Mm. In Newport, Rhode Island, back 1977. Speaking of history, what happened, Julia, on this day in history? 2004. Not exactly sailing specific, but water oriented. Here's your first clue. Now, that may not look like much of a water clue, but do you see what's coming from behind?
Yes.
That is in Thailand. I don't know how to pronounce it. Ao Nani.
Oh, yeah.
In Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to believe it's that long ago, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Any of the foes you know? Julie Aaron saying hi from Cleveland. Joe Holtzman checking in from Estes Park. Jody Shields is in Bali where it's 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. He was on the show in good form last night. Hello, Alistair Murray, president of Sailing Australia, checking in. A boring and wet day at the cricket yesterday. Yeah, you had a bit of rain and thunderstorms and lightning across Australia. Carlos Aviz down in South America and Brasilia. Vice Commodore Harrington, Claire Harrington, the Vice Commodore of the New York Yacht Club, who was also on the show last night. Mm-hmm. Good to have Claire on. John Emmett, I always enjoy the show when alcohol is involved.
It gets better and better, yeah.
Sweeney, I think we had... Here's Chuck Kuhn, safe sailing from Daphne, Alabama, via Cape Coral, Florida. Hello, Chuck. Mm-hmm. We had some new names out here, Julia, during the holidays when we don't have maybe everybody working full-time. Maybe they're working from home, checking in. Eggnog, that reminds me, I haven't had my scrambled eggs for breakfast yet. Well, it's only 8:13 in Sydney on
plenty of time.
Wednesday morning. You got plenty of time. Peter Stevenson, a.k.a. Pedro Falling Sailor. Ed Worley, how many AC campaigns did the Jewett family support? Well, we could count them, Julia. We're still waiting to see if anybody knows what happened on this date in history.
Yeah,
2004.
The tsunami was on there.
Correct. Yeah, it was a tsunami. We'll go back to that in a moment. The Jewetts supported at least, I don't know if they supported the 70 campaign of Bill Ficker, when Ficker was quicker on Intrepid.
Yeah.
May well have.
May have.
70. So let's count 70, 74, 77, 80, mm-hmm. 83, mm-hmm. 87, 88, mm-hmm. 92, for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they did in 95. If they supported Dennis, they probably did, although there was starting to be some disaffection there. 95, we'll give that credit. That's 9. Mm-hmm. 2000, certainly the St. Francis mm-hmm. campaign, they were big supporters, and they were in Auckland with you and others, so mm-hmm. that's 10. 2003, I don't think they were financial supporters for our campaign, but they were certainly supporters morally and otherwise. 03, 07, 10, and then they were big supporters of George Fritz had passed by then, but certainly big supporters of the effort here in 2013 to defend the Cup. And we did, I almost put a picture in, you remembered being in the America's Cup VIP Center.
Right.
and she was there, the mayor, the Commodore Golden Gate, Byron. Commodore Byron, and the Pfaffs and others. And we were all, we're going to lose every day. It was 8 in a row. We're going to lose again today.
My favorite picture is when I took you as you were finishing the eulogy.
Well, I was finishing Norbert Byron's, Commodore Byron's concession speech, and I had to rewrite it every day for 8 days.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So let's go back to this day in history, and then we'll go back to the comments. So, yeah, it was the tsunami, Asia's worst ever earthquake. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Asia, the most powerful earthquake in the 21st century as well, and at least the third most powerful earthquake ever recorded in the world since modern seismography began in 1900. I didn't either. It had the longest duration of faulting ever observed, between 8 and 10 minutes. It caused the planet to vibrate as much as 10 millimeters, and also remotely triggered earthquakes as far away as Alaska on the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Rim. Its epicenter was between someplace in Sumatra. I don't know how to pronounce Simuliu. Better be careful where you are, Jody. Jody Shields in Bali. The plight of the affected people and countries prompted a worldwide humanitarian response with donations totaling more than $14 billion, according to Wikipedia, equivalent today to US $22 billion. That is a GIF or a GIF of the tsunami that was resulted from that undersea earthquake on this day, Boxing Day, in 2004. It actually happened in Boxing Day local. So it would have happened yesterday, our time. 9.3 magnitude earthquake creates a tsunami, causing devastation in Sri Lanka, India, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, the Maldives, and the edges of the Indian Ocean, killing fully 230,000 people on this day in history, 26.
I didn't remember it being that big.
I didn't either, but of course we probably paid attention to it the first day or the second day, and then it kind of falls off our radar screen.
The numbers do, yeah.
And then they don't realize the numbers probably for weeks afterwards until they get into some of those godforsaken areas. Yeah. Replying to Alistair Mayer, was it raining as well, Alistair? Yeah, I think they're just going through comments here. James Pleasance is on. Hello, James. Festive greetings, Tom and Julia from Oz. He's still in Australia. Congratulations, he's back. I guess he went from China to Australia. Congratulations on your 6th year of SI, and thanks for all the WMRT and women's WMRT coverage. It's our pleasure, James. We like to keep a WMRT World Match Racing Tour sticker right here in the Croutonic corner, which we've long since dedicated to Peter Stevenson, Pedro Foiling Sailor, who made the wooden platform.
Right. I
used to just have it here rather unceremoniously on the corner of the desk.
Now it's on a pedestal, a quarter of an inch high.
A nice pedestal, thanks to Pedro Foiling Sailor. Yeah, John Hamfield, we're going to talk about David Witt and him and his scallywag having to bail out. He's our generation's blackauler, and it's Scallywag's last Hobart race. Yeah, not the time. It seems sometimes, as one of my Fozy friends said this morning, David Witt seems to go around with a dark cloud over his and his team's head. But yeah, there's all the comments about the tsunami there up at the top. Spangos, Hanfield, and others. David James, all getting the hit this day in history. If you've adjusted the ratio of ingredients, they're back. Gordon's back on eggnog and scrambled egg. It doesn't need much. It doesn't. I mean, I just literally had a splash.
Yeah.
And of course, it's on the top of the eggnog, and the eggnog's pretty thick. And it's not proper eggnog. I obviously did not make it from scratch.
That would be healthy, made from scratch, though.
Well, would it?
Sure.
There's so much sugar in eggnog. Come on. Sugar's bad for you. Sugar is the smoking. It's the worst thing you can do is to eat sugar, right?
I don't remember sugar.
Well, to Lucy, we toasted Lucy. I can toast her again. She was a fabulous person. I called her the Grande Dame of the America's Cup. She was. She was. And her husband, George, they're two of the nicest people in the modern history of the sport. I toast all the Fozy, too. Here's to all of you. Thank you for your support all these years, your interest, dialing in, tuning in. It was fun last night in seeing new names. So we consistently, Commodore Harrington's been on and a few others that we don't normally or haven't in the past, even though Claire's been on the show once, maybe twice. We'll get her on again if she's willing. Christiane Price, speaking of Fozy, who've been on the show, is watching from Pittwater, and she and her family, her son Harry, is on the leading boat, Andu Comanche. Let's check in on the Andu Comanche is still ahead of Law Connect. That's live, a live look at the tracker. That's not the official tracker. That's the other tracker, the GIS.EE tracker, but we'll get to that in a moment. We'll do a full review. Graham Sweeney saying a rum custard cocktail. What's that, Julia?
A cooked eggnog.
How do you? Is it literally? I mean, is it just custard?
No, it's
not.
Is
there such a thing as a rum custard cocktail?
No, but it's the same ingredients as a custard.
Dorsey Beard. Dorsey was on my team for the 87. Speaking of the 87 America's Cup and Lucy Jewett, Dorsey was a key person in our campaign, the America 2 campaign, way back. She says it's Pea Soup Foggy in Jamestown, which is there on Connecticut Island, in Narragansett Bay. And what else? Fog Machine. Now, we think we know who Fog Machine is. We finally broken the code. Says Bundy should be used only topically, as in for wounds. They're talking about
Bundaberg, though.
That's what they're talking about.
Is undrinkable, but it makes a great
what?
Based for food.
Claire says she's never been on the show. I thought we had Claire on the show leading up to the International Cup or the Invitational Cup. Maybe not. Are you sure, Claire, we didn't have you on by Skype? Or well, she would remember.
Oh, sure. Of course she knows.
We got to have her on. Okay.
Yes.
Is it you know what? Maybe it was, I was talking about whether we could get her on, and we ended up with the Commodore or somebody else. And she was going to be the alternative. We couldn't get the Commodore on, the good doctor. Hanfield, is it the race or the marketing event that gets so much attention? The Newport, Bermuda, and Fastnet does not get near the coverage that Sydney gets. Maybe also, I think we talked about this on Friday's show and also last night. I think it's a combination, John, of all those things. It being a day off for many people around the world, Boxing Day, and Christmas night here. People probably are bored of football and the family and eating turkey, so they tune into this race. Stingray, hello, Stingray, up in Seattle. One hears that everything aboard Scallywag turned to custard. You're thinking of Robbie Benjamin. Yes, we had Robbie Benjamin on too. That was that the Invitational Cup? She was regatta chair for that, but I thought we also had you on, Claire. Well, I guess not. If you say not,
well, we have to do it.
No, for sure.
She's great fanfare.
It would be great fanfare and more. Mm-hmm. Julia, before we go to what is Boxing Day, I've got a little video about that. We should mention now that we took a decision last night at dinner. We had a little bit of a dinner. Well, 2 dinners in a row here. You came down for Christmas, Christmas Day dinner, and then, or Christmas Eve dinner, I should say, because I was working all Christmas Day getting these shows put together. Yeah. And then last night after our show, you stayed for dinner, and we had a bit of salmon, and it was a healthy dinner.
Yes,
other than the pumpkin pie, which I made, I cooked, I baked.
It was
not from scratch.
It was half a inch.
No, but we did have salmon and
oh yes,
and what was it? Asparagus. It was very healthy, except for the white rice. But we should say that we took a decision last night, Stingray, and others of you who are not using your real names. Now, Pedro Foiling Sailor, we all know who he is. He's long since outed himself as Peter Stevenson. We took a decision that starting January 1st, so our next show will be a week Friday. So starting in the new year, we will no longer read comments from people who are not using their real name.
Or known to us, yeah.
Well, if they're not using their real name here. Now, most everybody is.
Yes.
And if they're on Facebook, it's a requirement of Facebook. You can't hide behind it. Well, you could still put up a synonym. You could put, or not a synonym, but a pen name. But most everybody's using their real name. But if Stingray, we know who you are, and if you want to continue to post as Stingray, that's fine. We're not going to tell people not to post, but we're not going to ring them or read them.
Stingray says, ha, ha, ha.
We're not going to read it, Stingray. You can still post. But most everybody uses their real name. We think that that's better for the whole sport. That's better for us if people use their real names. And if you don't want to, fine. We just won't read your comment. Is that what do the Fozy think of that as a policy, Julia? Shall we ask them?
We'll ask them.
If you let us know. But see, I'm just scrolling through here again. Almost everybody's using their real name.
Yes.
That's the decision we took at dinner last night. We hope you'll support that, and we hope those of you who are using pen names will switch to real names or not. Just post, and I'm sorry we won't read your comments because I think that's
John thinks it's a good idea, and
he does.
Yeah.
Okay. Holtzman says bingo, and we'll call ourselves the Elon Musks of sailing. Good idea. Spango says. Emmett says, I'll have to make sure I use the correct login. Yeah, he gets on YouTube sometimes with his, but see, we know who he is. I don't mind saying that's really John Emmett.
He just said because he uses that silly handle on other forums.
Yeah.
He prefers to remain anonymous.
Who's that?
Stingray.
Well, I know, but he's welcome to do it. We just aren't going to read his comments. Probably won't. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody think it's a bad idea? Peter Taylor. Sounds good unless the Fozy is a member of the Witness Protection Program, perhaps special dispensation.
Fess up.
Greg Phillips down on the Gold Coast in Australia says it's a good idea. Okay, let's carry on. So we've done this day in history, the Boxing Day tsunami. It was a terrible tragedy. Let's talk now about this.
On the 26th of December,
Boxing
St.
Day.
Stephen's Day in
and
the
St.
Christian
Stephen's
calendar,
Day.
People in America go back to work. But in Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, they don't. In these countries, the 26th of December is a public holiday. It is called Boxing Day. This name has two possible origins. Some say it has this name because in the past, English masters gave their servants a box with small presents or money on the 26th of December. Others say it has this name because churches had boxes for the poor. People put money in these boxes, and the churches opened them on the 26th of December and gave the money to the poor.
Okay, so I read up on this.
Yep.
And I was told by my late, great, beloved mother, just passed away, as you know, that Boxing Day was the day that you put your presents that you wanted to return back in the boxes so that, somebody could take them back and return them. And that's not it. And of course, that's the kind of the U.S. probably interpretation of it. But until fairly recently, I guess until we lived in Australia and New Zealand, when we realized it was a charitable event.
Right.
And then it dates back to the 1600s when the Brits apparently, on the staff, you had staff in those days. You have staff today. Your lady came in this morning.
Yes.
And staff came in and worked Christmas Day, and then the staff were given Boxing Day off to spend with their families, and the British apparently gave their staff boxes of presents to take to their spousals and children, to their families.
And leftovers from the Christmas dinner.
Indeed, and leftovers. Well, good point. Good point. But the charitable aspect that the churches apparently did, I was not aware of that. And that's also widely reported, especially in the Commonwealth countries, as something that is still, as John Emmett said in the comments, is still done today. So bravo Zulu for Boxing Day. Having lived in Spain and Germany, I remember St. Stephen's Day. And of course, most of those cultures, the Catholic countries and the other European countries, celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. That's when the presents are done. That's when the big dinner is. And you go to church on Christmas Day.
And the 12th of December?
That's something else. You're talking
12th
about
of January. Yeah.
Well, it's the 12th day, which is the 6th of January.
Yeah, 6th.
That's a deal too. That's a deal. Okay, we cover here just for a moment our holiday schedule. We talked about it briefly, but we will. Well, we're doing this show today, our regular show number 673, but we will be dark this Friday and next Tuesday. I'm going to be out of town, and rather than lugging equipment with me, I'd like to take a long weekend off So no shows here. Julie will be in town, and give her the well-deserved break as well. So our next proper regular show will be on Friday, the 5th of January, show number 674. We hope you can join us for that. And indeed, we want to thank, on this Boxing Day, thank all of you for your support via Patreon, because we have precious few sponsors. Captain Jack, John Schaefer, and a few other Fozy have supported us when they wanted to get a special message across, but we like being viewer-supported media so we can say what we think what we say, and read all your comments and do it the way we want, not have any pressure whatsoever from sponsors, advertisers. And you can help continue that tradition, although these now 6 years, via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Julie, you have anything to add to that?
I'm liking Andrew Barkworth's comment. Why do leftovers taste better than the day before?
Because it sits in the pot a little longer.
No, it's true.
They almost always.
Yeah.
Do. What's this Clark replying? Oh, Hanfield. They're talking about back and forth. I don't know. That's a good question, Andrew Barkworth. A good question, good comment. But they certainly do, especially if you put a little more olive oil on them and put them in the microwave, and a little more gravy. Fog Machine says St. Stephen means something else to deadheads. He's the one that invented LSD. I used to have a radio station, WLSD, a pirate radio station back in my dorm room.
Being very hip.
No, it was the University of Michigan, and I had in fact, it was in my bedroom in high school. I started out WLSD, but nobody could hear it there. In the college dormitory at Alice Lloyd Hall at the University of Michigan, I tapped into the local transmitter for the college broadcast network, and we lit it for about a week until we got caught. WLSD. Okay, let's get to Bravo Zulu before we do this. I got to say, Julia, I thought Bravo Zulu is well-deserved because of this continuing great coverage. Several of you referred to it already, but the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia putting on this magnificent race, as other clubs do equally magnificent races, but they seem to have tapped into the heart and soul of non-sailors in Australia with this. And has it always been on the 7 network, or was it originally on the 9? I can't remember what the original network, if any, was. But the 7 network also has done a fabulous job, at least for the years I've been watching this race. I think they've covered it the whole time. And there was a lot of criticism. I read all the other, not just on our show, not any criticism last night, a little bit last night. And I think Jody Shields made a comment that was tongue-in-cheek about, there goes Channel 7 again doing it. But we have to recognize, I think, it's fair to recognize, to say that Channel 7 is doing this not for the yachties, although the guy who's the co-commentator is a yachty, and they know what's going on, and they don't talk down to the yachting community. But they do a pretty good job, in my opinion, of also saying and covering stuff that's of general interest, like the people hopping. We've all seen people hop off the back ends of boats. Right. The camera person and the commentator, as we saw Lisa Darmanin hop off and her camera op. And they play that in replays, but the general public finds that fascinating because half the world doesn't want to jump in the ocean for fear of sharks.
I know. And also is sort of reminds me of the comment which says, why is that race so much more popular than Bermuda, for instance? And part of it is because Australia and New Zealand are exotic to most, and started out that way.
Yeah, but come back. Why is it so popular within Australia? That's the question. Why? And part of it's because there's boats.
Because everybody knows somebody that's there.
Well, that's a good point. There are boats from all of the states there sailing, and they make a big deal of that on the telecast. There are boats from here, there, and everywhere, from WA and from South Australia and so on, Victoria, and Queensland. Then it's, other than the rugby or the cricket test, which yesterday was rain, as you heard Alistair say, was rain. He was there. It was a rainy cricket test. But Alistair, who won? That was against Pakistan, right? Other than that, people are, it's Boxing Day, and it's the one other major sporting event that people can watch live on TV. It's only an hour and a half.
Yeah, and Clark says, Chapin says, are there non-sailors in Australia? Who knew? I think that's true.
Yeah. Hi, Ken Saban in Toledo, Ohio. He's checked in. Yeah, see, Joe Holtzman, like I, and Joe's from Ohio and Michigan originally. I understood what Boxing Day hat was. We always thought it was the day to go to Hudson's department store and buy sales, because there are a lot of stores. I mean, there are big sales too on Boxing Day, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think Color 7. It started with Color 7, and the big fella sailing 18-footers, Peter Stevenson, aka Pedro Foiling Sailor, is saying, Test cricket goes for 5 days. Mm-hmm. John Collingsworth is telling us. Kimball Livingston. Hi, Kimball. Commodore Livingston, esteemed past Commodore here, staff Commodore at St. Francis Yacht Club. 7 sponsored Ian Murray back in the day when he was racing skiffs and known as Jethro. Alistair Murray, can you find me a crew, the Taser Nationals? We've been talking about the Taser Nats and the Worlds, which start in Melbourne in a few days. And his daughter fell down the stairs. She was to crew with Alistair in the Taser and badly hurt her ankle, now crewless and clueless. Oh, dear.
Oh, my. Well, this is a good advertisement. Somebody will.
No doubt. There's somebody in Oz watching will give you a bell. He'll put a note up in the yacht club, no doubt. But Bravo Zulu also to 7 Sport. And we can't buy publicity like this. Mm-mm. And yeah, there are a lot of commercials. Not too many. I mean, not like college football here in the U.S., where it seems like every 3.5 minutes there's a commercial.
Because there's nothing else happening on the field.
But Bravo Zulu to them and to the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Also, to Law Connect. Now, Law Connect was live yesterday, and we would switch to Law Connect's feed, as would the broadcaster from time to time. Now, I'm going to switch to their feed now. And that is live off there. You can see the little red live up there in the corner. And that is live off their YouTube channel, but I've not, maybe others of you can, but I've not been able to get on their YouTube channel all morning. Now, whether their service, they're using Elon Musk, speaking of Elon, Mr. Musk, they're using his Starlink, thank you, Julia, system, and that has gone crutonic.
Has it?
I don't know whether it has or whether something else has happened. Like there's just too many people trying to access.
That's probably true.
The server.
Yeah.
Because it looked to me a couple times I got the rolling YouTube circle. So they don't seem to be moving. Is that true on the tracker? Let me go look at the tracker here. John Emmett, and zoom that in a bit. They're well behind the record, no surprise, after the light air of yesterday. There they are way over here as I scroll it. Oops, yeah, I am on there. Scroll it across. Maybe I zoom out some more. You can see this time in 2017 on their record-setting pace, you can see there by the hand is LDV Comanche. In 2017, they were almost to Tasmania. Well, they were.
That's the record.
That's the record run in 2017. Yeah. But are these boats not moving? What's it say? Law Connect. It's not Law Connect. Speed over the ground. It says 15 knots, doesn't it? Zoom that a bit. Speed over the ground, 16 knots. So they do seem to be moving. Andu Comanche's speed over the ground is 18 knots. Mm-hmm. And they are...
all by themselves.
Well, not much by there. I mean, they're only 5 miles apart, I think.
No, but I mean, from the rest
from the rest of the pack. Yeah, and that's no surprise. I mean, they're the 100-footers. The pack behind them, the mini-maxis. Alive, URM, Group Money Penny, and Wild Thing. We'll come back to that in due course, but I did want to show you that. But for some reason, their YouTube channel, can anyone else? Yeah, Spinning Wheel of Death, Banneros says. So there must be either too many people or they've lost the service.
Oh, Fog Machine says the tracker's still alive. The data comes from a yellow brick satellite box that doesn't use Starlink.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That's a whole other issue. The tracker is not part of Starlink. That's true. Peter Stevenson, Pedro Foiling Sailor, says, I think I saw a crew member turn it off around 9 o'clock last night. Huh. Okay. What other comments there? The tracker is still alive. The date, yeah, okay, we talked about. I dislike yachts being named after the sponsor. Hanfield says, well, he's a traditionalist. Good old Newport boy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, right. Oh, the live YouTube is not moving. Yes, that's the point, John, is that I haven't been able to, I'll go on, that's their YouTube channel. And by the way, I just Google YouTube Law Connect or Law Connect AU. It comes right up. I was able to get it yesterday, no problem. So no, they're not sailing slowly. The tracker is still live. Any other comments here? Did I get to the bottom?
Donut of death.
Yeah, the donut of death. Fritz Mueller in Miami saying, I have to say I like Channel 7's coverage. And I did too. I thought it was a good balance between what was good for the kind of the general public and
especially in the start. It was sort of fun because you could just feel like you were on deck during that.
Well, in this, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like it was better than ever.
Yes.
In terms of the number of cameras on board. They had cameras on board, what, 3 yachts? 4 yachts?
I don't know.
I can't remember, but I enjoyed it. I hope you all did. Maybe next year we will go live to our normal channels and not just to a private YouTube. Although if we do, I think it's good value to bring the YouTube up and let people who want to comment to come on YouTube. Right. Okay, shall we divulge that little 2024 plan? We also talked about dinner. We have our once a year planning dinner, I guess. We haven't decided, but we thought we'd ask you all. We are thinking about a third show, right? Mm-hmm. During, I don't know, a third show during the week. And the time, it takes me a day and plus to put one of these shows together with all the slides and the slide deck. It's 100 slides and videos and getting them and putting them into the keynote presentation and yada, 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 putting the transitions. So that's what takes the time. And it takes me Monday to prepare Tuesday's show and Tuesday morning, and Thursday and Friday morning to prepare Friday's show. And that's, do a little work in the studio on Wednesdays to fix sound problems that, knock on wood, we have fixed. And other little studio maintenance and upgrade items, software and other. But we thought about doing just a coffee clatch, which kind of some better name today, a cocktail hour, a something, a happy hour.
Yeah, a happy hour.
And maybe just an hour long, and live to our normal channels, but with YouTube, with Zoom rather. So people can come on Zoom, and it's just it's a comment about, what Redditors on Reddit, they would say an AMA, and ask me anything. Not that they're going to ask Julia, you and me anything, but ask each other.
Right.
Like we're doing now. Who thinks of this or that? What about this or that? What do you think? And people can come on and comment. And yeah, we keep it sailing focused. We're not going to talk about the Ukraine war too much. not talk about other things of moral and social consequence worldwide. But we're thinking about doing that. The question is, what day, given the time zones?
And what time?
Because if we do it at this time, it's, again, late in Europe, and it's early the next morning in down under. And we thought about, well, let's find another time to do that so that it's not the same time. But we racked our brains a bit. If we do it early in our morning, it's then going to be the middle of the night in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
And if we do it late at night, our time, we'd have to do it at 11 o'clock our time. It's late for us. I'm in bed by 11. You're a night owl. But if we do it at 11 at night, which is 0800 in Central Europe, 0700 most of the year in the UK and UTC, that's in the evening down under the next day. So that would be okay. John Hanfield saying Sunday morning breakfast at Wimbledon. I don't know. Well, more orca coverage.
Yeah.
Peter Stevens says, no third show. I have stuff to do.
Fair enough.
Okay, well, we're thinking about that. We haven't taken that decision. But Bravo Zulu, a little Bravo Zulu also to Law Connect for at least the attempt at doing this.
Yes.
I think you're going to see John Sangmeister and his boys do this on their 70-footer in the, not next year because there isn't a Transpac, but in the year after that. And maybe we'll see more and more boats doing that. Maybe Alistair, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin will encourage some of his maxis to do that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
From their events. Wouldn't that be nice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get to this the long since promised update, and then we've got a report from John Emmett too that I haven't gotten to yet. We'll do it after we do the Rolex Sydney Hobart update, and let me start with the Channel 7 report yesterday morning before the start of the race, just to help set the scene, and again to show you what great this is on the 7 network nationally across Australia to show what great coverage they do in fact get on their 7 network.
The sunrise on this beautiful Boxing Day. We're just hours away from the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race officially beginning, with 100 odd boats registered to sail in the 78th edition of the race. The fleet will take off from Sydney Harbour at 1 p.m. and travel a staggering 628 nautical miles south to Hobart, where they'll hit the finish line just near Constitution Dock. However, the crews are in for some pretty wild weather, it's looking like. The forecast showing thunderstorms could bring rain, strong winds and even hail to parts of their trek south. For more on all of that, I'm joined by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia's Commodore, Arthur Lane. Arthur, a big morning for you. Good to see you. Last year, conditions were described as champagne sailing, and it really was quite nice. This year, it looks like things are going to be a little bit different.
Good morning, Mark, and compliments of the season to you. The weather has been really, really flexible. It's changing every day, and all the experts are still scratching their head that none of them can make their mind up. Although at 8 o'clock this morning, we will have the Bureau of Meteorology giving us their prediction as it goes forward. But it looks like a fairly benign start to the race today. It'll be sunny, which is good, but it's this gentle northeast breeze, so they'll work up the harbour. And I think all the way through the night as well, it'll be fairly gentle breezes going down the coast. But as you said, get down to Green Island, Green Cape, the wind is going to change, it's going to go to the southeast, and it's going to be windy and wet, and possibly hail, as you mentioned.
In tradition, it is such an incredible spectacle, the 78th edition of the Rolex Sydney Hobart. To you as Commodore, what makes it so special?
I suppose it's the atmosphere, it's the camaraderie which happens down in Sydney. It's fantastic. The atmosphere here is just extraordinary. And it's to see boats so well prepared. They are just extraordinary amount of work that goes into to make these boats safe and secure for that trip down there. And then when you get to Hobart, the people of Tasmania, particularly of Hobart itself, are just amazing. They are so welcoming. It's time for a very big party and to talk about the adventures they've just been through.
Yeah, it is. There are a few things like that finish line at Constitution Dock when the first few line honours winners come in, and right through everyone finishing. Tassie does that really, really well. A big contest this year, always the Super Maxis going head to head in this battering race against each other. Who do you like for line honours this year?
I think all 4 Super Maxis have got a chance. I think the outsider will be Wild Thing 100 from Tasmania. They come into the picture quite late, but the Hong Kong boat, Scallywag, got a whole different rig on it. It could be very interesting, but you'll be a brave man to go beyond Andrew Comanche and Law Connect.
Yeah, good point. The one that every skipper wants to win, of course, is the Tattersalls Trophy. That's for handicap, so that's for the overall winner. Celestial, great last year, back in the fleet again. Very hard to go past Celestial, but always a hot competition, this one.
The 8 TP52s, which are boats very similar to Celestial, all are so beautifully prepared and they're really ready. And then you've got a couple of other boats in that 50, 54 range, which all could do it. Celestial will have a hard time to do it again, but they're well prepared and they have a really top crew aboard.
Yeah, Arthur, we can't wait to see the start live on 7 today. We're looking forward to getting down on the harbour and joining you down there. Good luck. It's a big few days, a big week or so of racing as you get this fleet safely down to Hobart. All the very best, and we can't wait to follow it on the Yacht Tracker as well.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you down there.
Great. Thanks very much, Arthur. Eddie?
Now, how perfect is that?
Yeah.
You see the course diagram, I think, twice.
Yeah.
You see the guy talking, as Clark Chapin pointed out, in nautical miles and knots, not in,
Yeah.
kilometers per hour or some other Croutonicism. You see the layout of there's a tracker, both the first to finish, the Lion Honors race, as well as for the Tattersall Cup, which is corrected. I mean, it's beautifully produced, simple. I think one of the things we didn't mention, and we'll have this lady, we can change that at the end of that video. But the other thing, Julia, is that almost everybody in Australia lives within a few Ks, a few kilometers, a few miles of the sea. So it's not like you have flyover country here in the U.S. where people, even though there's a lot of sailing on the little lakes and ponds all over at least in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes area, and down in Texas and so on. But it's not a sailing culture. It's not a water culture, except here on the coast and the bays, Chesapeake Bay and the Gulf Coast and up and down California and
all the coasts.
All the coasts. So I think that's quite different. That is quite a different situation for Australia. But there's more than that. There's something about it. Maybe it's we think of our black Americans having arrived here on boats, and that's kind of a pejorative, and that's one of the reasons it's asserted here sometimes that African Americans don't like the water, don't like sailing. I think that's Croutonic.
And don't swim.
And don't swim, but I think that's largely Croutonic. I know plenty of black Americans who sail and swim and so on.
Right.
But maybe it's because Aussies all did get there for other than the Aboriginals, other than the native Australians. They all did get there by boat, and they celebrate Cook, and they celebrate the Portuguese and all the other, Tasman, and all the other. What do you think? You're looking skeptical.
Well, its culture is more oriented towards the water
In Australia. And certainly New Zealand as well.
Absolutely, in New Zealand. You can't go 3 kilometers without running into water.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. Ed Worley, I agree. It was a nice interview, and it's nice to see coverage like that anywhere in the world. In fact, the number of people who tune in around the world to watch it is also, I think, telling about how good a coverage. So there's the start, yesterday's race. And there were, as we discussed on the last night on the watch party, there are fully 4 starting lines. And we did confirm that. They've just started on this starting line. There is one end of it, and there's the other end, the 2 little yellow tetrahedrons. And that's for the maxis and the mini maxis. Then there's another line here just behind. They all start at the same time, not 5 minutes apart. They all start on 4 different lines. Then there's, for the smaller boats, back here, a 3rd line. And then for the double-handed boats, of which I think you can only see those 4, and they are starting on yet another 4th starting line. And that's fairly new. That's a fairly recent development, and a brilliant development, in my opinion. And, Kimball is saying sponsorship helps to the extent that Rolex money makes it possible to show it to the world. That is probably true, too. Rolex probably buys some sponsorship on Channel 7, all good. 103 boats started, Stingray is reminding us. Really cool. And Ed Worley is reminding us that sailing in the U.S. is frowned upon because of the cultural stereotypes portrayed. Yep. Okay.
That's probably true.
Some truth to that, don't you think, Julia?
I do.
Okay. Now I'm going to set the stage further. We've seen just the morning news report on Channel 7 setting the stage before the start. Here is the 9 Network's report right after the start. Have a look.
The vessels have been primed and the starter's gun fired. A full fleet now off and sailing in the Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race. There wasn't much room on the water, with thousands of boaties and spectators scrambling for the best vantage spots on and around the harbour.
They're off. Bang, away they go in the 78th Rolex Sydney Hobart. The Great Race South is underway.
The yearly tradition, always a spectacle.
They are in race mode at the moment. It is all happening here.
It was all happening in the harbour. Thousands packed onto yachts, cruisers, really anything that floated. For those not competing, the race is merely an excuse. The real event is being out and about, soaking up our city. It was muggy, it was raining, but who cares? They certainly didn't, and neither did Bob, on board the oldest yacht in the fleet, and with the most interesting crew member.
Well, he's the Admiral, and Chris and I are the co-skippers, so we take orders from the cat.
He and his crew not focusing on when they finish, just that they do.
A few thunderstorms are going to keep us on our toes because there's strong winds associated with that. But yeah, we're just going to go out there and go as fast as we can, as best we can, and sail safe and have fun.
But it's not fun for everyone. Some are out to set the pace. Law Connect planning to scale the heights of the boating world and win this year's Sydney to Hobart.
You're always just wanting to get going, to be honest. Like, you've done all the preparation and you just want to get out of here on the day.
But for every boatie, there's a family behind them, cheering, but not before waving goodbye.
I'm proud of him, trust him that he'll do good and hopefully he'll win.
Now, the weather has been a little indifferent across the course of today, but the competitors tell me it is relatively smooth sailing on the way out of the harbour, but it won't last. Wind, rain and storms are predicted, but nothing is spoiling this party. On Sydney Harbour, Alex Heinke, 9 News.
See, there's the answer. It's a party.
Yeah.
Nothing is spoiling the party.
Yeah. I've been on the Sydney Harbour
on Boxing Day.
Yes, under the start. It's you take your life in your hand.
We did in 88 or 89, after Dennis had won the 87 Cup against Kookaburra and Ian Murray, and they had a rematch on Sydney Harbour on Australia Day, which is what, the 26th of January? Whatever
something like
late,
that.
Late in January.
Yeah.
On Sydney Harbour, and it was a series of races over a couple, 3-4 days, I can't remember. I was umpiring with Brian Willis and Joran Peterson. It was the first 12-meter type, and they were sailing their 12s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first 12-meter umpiring that we actually did on the water.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were out on the water in a big boat in like a Hatteras 50 or something.
Right.
It wasn't Hatteras because it would have been a local. But you could have walked across Sydney Harbour. I'm sure you've seen the same thing. It was a fabulous event. Clark says, I like how the final turning marks outside the heads are spaced out so that all the fleet sail the same distance.
Oh, that's a good point.
Which is true. We've seen that. Tim Vick, hello, Tim. Over 400 boats started the last Fastnet race, and that's a scene, too, and a party, and I think that's why it's so popular in the UK. Everybody goes down the Isle of Wight.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm 64, da-da-da-da-da. Just a shame it doesn't get the same degree of coverage. That is true. Mm-hmm. Commodore Hart, Charlie Hart, welcome to you, sir. Charlie Hart, one of another esteemed former Commodore, past Commodore, staff Commodore, as we call them here, of the St. Francis Yacht Club, wishing us all happy holidays. To Tom and the Commodore, he knows that Julia is the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, right?
Yeah.
Emmett is feeling sorry for Scallywag. Sweeney saying, Graham is saying, having a cat on a slow boat is a good strategy, especially if they run out of food.
Oh, come on, Graham.
Hanfield, John, who's of course lives in Newport, he's saying if Newport delayed the start 2 weeks until the 4th of July, they might be able to build some more views and coverage. Maybe. I don't think you're going to see that. We'll have to ask Vice Commodore Harrington if that's in the cards or would be in the cards.
There are a lot of special programming on the 4th.
Well, that's true. That's also true. Okay, now I'm going to get you to the official note posted this morning by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. By the way, they're giving these written updates. Go on to the Just Google Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. And it's not the CYA, it's not the Cruising Yacht Club's website. It's a special Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race website. And they're posting a lot of stuff on there, photos, videos, yada, yada. After a clean start at 1300, following a passing shower, the fleet of 103 boats made their way out of the harbor from their 4 respective start lines in 9 knots of a southeasterly breeze with a messy 1.4 meter easterly swell. Law Connect started strongly but had an issue with their furling line during a sail change after the first mark and was soon overtaken by SHK Scallywag and Andu Comanche. I wish, here's an aside, New York Yacht Club, and I take the tradition from New York. New York, you can have yacht names and you can underline them. Mm-hmm. Or you can put them in italics, which is what you're seeing here on. Mm-hmm. You're seeing here, although they didn't put Andu Comanche in, so that might have just been a typo. I like New York Yacht Club's tradition from long ago of putting yacht names in all caps. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the Brits, too, because the Brits used to do that. I don't know how you all feel.
Printed media.
But, well, that's printed media and typewriters.
Yeah.
When, it was just easier to hit the caps lock and rather than going back and underlining the name, which is,
which
you couldn't do.
No, I couldn't do that.
On a typewriter, right? Mm-hmm. Unless, you couldn't even do it on an IBM Selector.
No.
Okay, so that's why we capitalize yacht names on Sailing Illustrated. It goes back to the tradition of New York Yacht Club, which I think is one of the many fabulous traditions that club maintains for our beloved sport. Mm-hmm. So Scallywag and Andu, I always try to make it Spanish, Andu Comanche, who were the first 2 out of the heads. John Herman Winning Jr. was quick to protest David Witt when he we're going to cover that, when he tacked too close in front of him, forcing him to alter course, or so they say here in the official report. They didn't use the word alleged, but the Hong Kong-based entry expunged the possible infraction by doing a 720-degree turn before Bondi. So they did, in fact, do a turn. We were speculating. Some of you were texting me this morning and questioning, and I had read last night, I think before I went to bed, to sleep anyway. I may have been in bed on my phone doing the New York Times mini crossword puzzle, which I do every night before I go to sleep. So they did do that. They did do their spins, as the kids call it now. The turns, 720, loops, as we used to call it. The spins. The kids now call it spins, especially in match racing. So that's the official report. They're giving these updates every, 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that, on the official website. And here from on board Law Connect is a video interview of one of the principals on the yacht. And I think you'll enjoy this brief interview about them having had a beautiful start.
So Tony, good start, eh? Off the line with pretty good speed and good position.
Yeah, it was good. We managed to get off the top end of the line. It's always good on those sort of reaching legs. If you're with the boat, you get the puffs first, and we got away. And it went really well. Really pleased.
Looked like you were pretty slow there, edging down to the line. It must have been pretty nerve-wracking for you.
We lined up a long time in advance. We were all the way to the previous start line, and we sort of lined up. It was easily 7 minutes away, and we sort of worked our way slowly down, weaved our way in, and it worked out really well.
And then after you got to the mark to head offshore, you obviously had a problem and had a bit on your plate by the sounds of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Drew did an amazing job getting us to the Victor mark first, and the furling line exploded when they were trying to fill the big sail. So
looks like you got out of it all right. You it looked like you were close to back in the lead by the time you cleared the heads.
Yeah, we just had to do a pretty old school manoeuvre. We had to do a jibe around because we couldn't fill the sail. So we jibed around and then got back on the wind and just got back into the fight. And pretty quickly, we got back in the lead, which is really good.
Nice
really
work.
Yeah.
And you're toughing it out here tonight. Looks like the breeze up and down a bit and still a bit unknown.
Yep, the whole coastline of Australia looks like not very nice. It looks pretty chaotic down there. It looks like lightning and thunder.
Looks like there's fireworks on the shore for New Year's Eve already.
And it's daylight, so I can't imagine what it's going to be like tonight. But at the moment we're just we're now heading away from the shore and heading offshore again. And we're about 20 miles away from Jervis Bay.
Nice work. Keep it up and have a good night.
So I don't know why he dropped the camera down there. Maybe he's advertising his shoes. So the whole shore, the whole coast, he says, looks pretty chaotic. And storms and wind out of the east and the west and the north and the south. And of course, they're going to get down to the Tasman Strait, and it's going to be a southerly buster, as Bobby Steele told us, who was on the show last night on the watch party as well. Claire Harrington, Vice Commodore Harrington, is saying, we, the New York Yacht Club and the Cruising Club of America, CCA, have discussed using a similar starting procedure, I assume for the Bermuda race that Commodore Harrington means. S. Farron, hello. I remember the name from the past. There's a link on Sky Sports to their report. Thank you for that, for the Rolex Sydney Hobart. A couple more comments here. Jonathan Frank, just getting home from Brazil. He couldn't join us last night. He texted me, Julia, to say that he was flying from Sao Paulo, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think Brazil, Sao Paulo. You know, he's a 777 pilot for United. He was flying back and would check in with us today, and he has done so. Just getting back from Brazil. What did I miss? Yeah, Clark Chapin, they did do a 720. I've seen any number of reports that they did, in fact, do their spins before. And I think, didn't Clark point out last night they had to do that before they got to Bondi?
Yeah.
I guess level even with Bondi Beach. Yeah. Doing a 720 with more wind is a lot quicker than the light wind they had at the time of the incident. So smart. It was smart to wait. Good point from John Collingsworth, who has sailed this race on, I can't remember which boat, John, on Waxy? Fog machine, if there's peace in Ukraine, maybe Scorpios will come to Sydney some year. Good point. That's a point. Yes, there is a 100-foot limit in the Sydney to Hobart. Jonathan Frank's going to check in later, so no spoiler alerts. Thank you for having a safe trip back and for joining us. What else? Yeah, that wind noise. I think maybe, Julia, I will volunteer to go on Law Connect next year and be their AV person. Be there.
Well, it'd be fun to do.
Well, you got it. I mean, we have on our mics here. You don't, in a studio, you don't really need the covers for wind, but if I get close and there's they do help a little bit with plosive, so that's why we have them on. But you know the real reason that I have these,
they look good.
No, they actually they don't, and they do arguably make the sound a little muffled on these shotgun microphones. You probably all can't tell the difference, but because we got enough processing on here. The reason is that when we're not on the show, I work here and I'm wandering, and I get up half the time from the chair to go and I hit the mic with my head like the crouton that I am. Okay, stop making noise. That's why we have the windscreens on the mics indoors. That's probably more information than you needed.
Yes.
And I'll just say one other thing, Julia. You know, we did those long tests the other day. I was for hours on testing, and we were talking about the technicalities of what we do and how we do it. We've picked up something like 24 subscribers since those tests.
No kidding.
And I'm not sure why, if it had to do with it, because I don't think there were sailors, most of them. Maybe there were some sailors. I think it had to do with two things. I think talking about the technical stuff, there's a lot of people on YouTube who are always looking for advice and information about streaming. And they see us with a bit of a setup. You know, it's a little bit of an unusual setup. And I think the other thing, excuse me, frankly, was that when you do a stream that long, 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm pushes it out to people that wouldn't otherwise see it, I guess. Okay, that's...
And also, as you, and as I forward it, I forward it to new people.
But you didn't forward those tests the other day.
No, I didn't.
And that's what came up. But yes, as Julia reminds us, please do share and like and yada yada. And it helps with.
It really does.
With our algorithm. So there's the shoe shot. That was Law Connect's Tony Mutter, and that was a nice report. Now here is the official. Now Rolex has already pumped out a video after yesterday's start. This is the official Rolex CYCA report, and it was out within hours of the start of the race yesterday.
An enthralling offshore challenge greets the eager, intrepid fleet as racing gets underway. The Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race, partnered by Rolex since 2002 and organised by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia in collaboration with the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, returns for the 78th edition. A diverse fleet of 103 yachts, crewed by a mix of seasoned professionals and Corinthian sailors, understand all too well the enormity of the challenge that lies ahead.
The Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race is the most iconic Australian event, and for us it's the great race every year that everybody wants to do. The boom from the cannons, especially if you're up the top third of the line, you know you're alive, and makes the adrenaline start rushing.
It's just exhilarating to be out there amongst the fleet of so many esteemed boats and esteemed sailors.
It's very crowded, but once you get out the heads, it's amazing.
Of the 4 100-foot maxis tipped for line honours, as of 3:30 p.m, Walkerneck narrowly leads the group, closely followed by last year's line honours winner Andrew Comanche, SHK Scallywag and Wild Thing 100.
You know, we've got nothing to prove. We did that last year, but everything to lose.
Whilst the defending line honours holder is placed well for the notoriously challenging 628 nautical mile journey, the Tattersall Cup, awarded to the overall winner, is anyone's prize.
Yeah, look, if back-to-back was a possibility, it would be amazing. It would be such an incredible thing to go, 2 in a row. Very few boats have done that.
We had a very good year. Won the Fastest race, won our class in Malta, and now we give it another try to win the class here in Sydney.
After weeks of preparation, crossing the start line marks the beginning of an even more intense and demanding human endeavour as the 103-strong fleet heads south towards Hobart.
Another nice video. I mean, there'll be, I don't know how many of these they will turn out in the next, 3 or 4 days, but bravo Zulu to Rolex for that.
I was also reminded of Larry Ellison's comment when he finished.
In 98.
Yeah.
Well, when they just finished. They won the race, but he swore off offshore racing after that. He said, if I do finish this race, if I get back, he didn't even care about finishing. If they just got to land alive, and they decided in the midst of all that madness, the best thing to do was to press on regardless. It was better than trying to go back to the mainland, to Australia. They keep going to Tasmania, and they ended up winning the race. But he never went ocean racing after that. They mothballed that boat, and then it finally got, rather unceremoniously, sayonara, it got carved up. Sayonara to sayonara. It got carved up by it with a...
Really?
Yeah, with chainsaws over down here in SoCal, and South San Francisco, not SoCal. Pedro Foiling Sailor would pay real money to see me jump off the back of the boat with my mic in your hand. No, I want to go on the entire race. I'll be the deputy navigator and the audio video guy for the whole race on Law Connect and help them with their production. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm too old anytime soon. I am cheering for this guy, Julia, on Caro, C-A-R-O. And that is, any other comments pop in here? Caro is the Swiss guy, Max Klink. No relation to Colonel Klink. Who brought that up the other day? Clark or Stingray or something? Max Klink, whom I don't know, but Andrew McIrvin, who, of course, is president of the Secretary General of the International Maxi Association, says this guy is one of the nicest, coolest guys in the sport. And that team has had a fabulous couple of years. And
they're doing well.
And we don't know yet.
They were fourth.
I haven't checked. Let me go check. That's a good idea. Check on the... but yeah, they are doing well. Let's click. There you go. And of course, it's going to be uncorrected, but they're out there. They got outside. You can see Caro out there to the east, and that's probably I'll put the over on them. And that's where the other boats that seem to be in the money, no pun with Moneypenny, that seem to be in like rather than hugging the coast. And they've had a fabulous year, a couple of years, and I hope they win. And I'm cheering for them. And I wore my Hobart Yacht Club pullover for two reasons. One is to cheer them on. They're Swiss.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, our club in Switzerland. But also, I wear this traditionally in our last show of the year. I've been doing that by coincidence. I realized I did it early on because remember I did a couple shows from San Diego.
Yeah.
And I had this shirt down there. It was just a lightweight cotton pullover, as you all Brits would say. Okay, now we have the Sailor Girl. Our friend Nick, Sailor Girl Douglas, who has for sure been on the show, Commodore Harrington. I'm sorry, I thought you had been. We got to get her on, Julia.
Yeah.
She's doing daily updates. She did her day one update late last night, Australia time, and filed this report, which I've truncated a bit, but have a look.
Good evening, everybody. Well, what a day for day one of the Rolex Sydney Hobart for 2023. An incredible start with the Maxis having Scallywag at the pin end of the line, with Law Connect nailing the boat end of the line, and a big shout out to both Whisper and Alive for brilliant starts as well. Andu Comanche was in the dust a little bit of Law Connect, but managed to catch up as they headed towards the first turning mark. Law Connect was first around, however, broke a furling line and had to jibe around. While they did that, Andu, Comanche and Scallywag fought it out, and it was Scallywag who eventually took the honours around the final turning mark with a port and starboard incident, and Andu Comanche flying a flag. Scallywag thereafter did 2 turns offshore, so it was all on. After doing my call for ABC Grandstand and the start with Chris Rowbottom, I headed offshore once again, and a big shout out to Cronulla Sailing Club for all of their help to make this happen, to a fleet of 103 boats who were effectively becalmed in next to no breeze. Can I just point out that this morning we had breeze from the west, the south, the east. It eventually settled in the, I'm going to say, easterly quadrant for the start of the race, with plenty of isolated storms. And once we headed offshore, there was absolutely nothing. I was with Andu Comanche when the breeze started to fill in from the east, and they are still leading the fleet, though that fleet has now diminished to 100 boats, with the unfortunate retirements of Arcadia, Rum Rebellion, and the 100-footer Scallywag with a broken bowsprit, which we're really sorry to hear about. All of those retirements, but Scallywag was doing so well.
That's what I woke up to. Several of you sent that picture, or those pictures that apparently came off the yacht, Scallywag. Sad news about that. But two other boats have retired, so a total of 3. And we'll see what happens when they get down into the down into the
Tasman Sea.
The Tasman Sea, and it's apparently going to be a bit the southerly buster, as it's known, and as Bobby Steele told us about again last night. Somehow got confused on the time. Yeah, true, but in any event, that is Nick Douglas, the Sailor Girl. And Ted Ryman's a big fan of hers, I know. He's a big fan of a lot of women, I think. Huh?
Yeah.
Too bad, Scallywag and David Witt. And apparently this is their last, or so they said before this race. Maybe they'll do it again. Who knows? Their owner, who is Hong Kong Chinese, maybe he'll have a change of heart. Now, we get to this video of the incident between Scallywag and Andu Comanche. And you tell us whether you think there was a foul here, whether there was tacking too close or otherwise. And maybe Andu Comanche hunted them. Take a look, and we'll show you the video twice, and then we're going to ask you in a Fosey poll what you think.
And made it impossible to furl that sail up. But here's the battle for 1 and 2 honours as Andu Comanche tacks onto starboard. And David Witt, this is what he's looking at. That's the view from Andu Comanche. Andu has all the rights on starboard. David Witt, listen to the action. Oh, there's some yelling. Oh, that's close. Witty, that's close. Oh, gee. Protest! Protest they're calling. Tacking too close. Will they go ahead with it? Yell protest, Sevi Jarvan. The tactician aboard Andu Comanche. They're calling protest. Now, if Scallywag thinks they've infringed, they can do 2 penalty turns before they get to Bondi. Now, that would be the prudent thing to do, I would think. You wouldn't want to go to Hobart with a protest hanging over your head. We've seen that become a problem for Wild Oats a few years ago. But anyway, we're settling down now. They're both boats on starboard.
Yeah, got it. Shit. So just to clear that up, Pete, if you do a double turn...
Okay, so we're going to ask you in a moment. I'm going to show it one more time. Pierre de Jong already saying it was too close, that there was a foul. John Hanfield, Witt performed a great lee bow, and Comanche clearly hunted down to try to make it look closer. Ando is a much greener team. Well, are they? Christiane Price is watching, and she said she would get she'd try to get the what's her name, who jumped off the boat.
Yeah.
Remind me her name.
I can't remember.
The commentator.
Yeah.
And she'd try to get her, but we're not going to do a show for a couple weeks. Maybe we'll just get her on the show. Try to get her on the show. What is her name? I can't remember her name. Lisa Darmanin, right?
Yeah.
We'll try to get her on the show. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, enough of that. Let's go back. We'll look at it again. We need the overhead shot. John Emmett is saying, yeah, we need a shot directly overhead of the incident. But let's go back and look at it again. And it when I first saw it real time last night, I commented, it looked like he completed. It looked like Andu hunted down to try to make it look closer than it really was. And I think that was Clark Chapin, our rules expert, rules guru here, made it. And right here, if I stop it, it looks like there's plenty of gauge, meaning distance side to side, the distance between their track and this boat's track, side to side. The America's Cup sailors used to call that, still do call it gauge. And if you take it frame by frame here, and when they complete the tack, which is watch the jib. And it's too bad they cut, the TV cut to this shot, but okay, they're still tacking, you can clearly see. And they have to get to a close hauled course. They don't have to have their sails filled, right, Clark? Just get to a close hauled course. In that shot, looks like there's plenty of gauge, and you can see Andu's wheel coming up. See them turning the wheel up? So it looks to me like, no, are they turning up to avoid? Are they turning up to get more gauge so they're not in the bad air, they're not in the safe leeward effect of the boat?
Yeah.
Or are they coming back up on the wind? Look at their jib. Look up here at their jib. It's still not breaking.
Mm-hmm.
I think they came down, but this is how the jury would sort this out.
Yeah.
And there is tack completion probably about there, right, Clark? Too bad we don't have the overhead. And now let's go. I think they go back and give us a shot. See, now Andu's wheel is coming back down to port. But arguably, they could have turned up because they thought it was just too damn close. And a lot of you were saying, hey, 100 footers in a confused sea and then 12, 13 knots. It's just, you don't put the boats in that proximity. Why didn't David Witt tack sooner? And they're shouting protests. There's a lot of there. Now that shot, again, that is the foreclosing of the telephoto lens on the helicopter camera, and it looks damn close at that point. But as you saw from the previous shot, I'll back it up. You saw from the previous shot, when they get into the actual tack, there looks like there's quite a bit more gauge than there is when they take to the helicopter after they have completed their tack on Scallywag.
I think most of the comments from the other night it was aggressive but not illegal.
Well, I don't know, Julia. I think that, I can't remember now exactly, but it was probably split more or less 50-50, but depending upon which camera angle you look at, that looks damn close. But again, it's the foreshortening effect to a degree.
Right.
Now, there's the shot I'm talking about. There's plenty of gauge.
Right.
It looks like there's plenty of gauge.
Yep.
between the two boats when they complete right there.
But what do we know? Because we don't sail 100-foot boats.
Well, no, I mean, we've been on 100-foot boats.
Yeah.
We don't race them. And as several people have said, why did David Witt even take the chance? He knew he was going to have to tack. Why didn't he tack in a 600-plus mile race? Why put yourself in this position and even risk the protest? I think that's everybody's come away. That's what we all come away with. So I ask you now, in this, we don't need to look at it again. I've got the Fozy poll with the ethereal music that I like. Some of you don't. Some of you liked it. Our Fozy poll, was it too close or not? Did Scallywag foul Andu Comanche? A is yes in our poll. B is no. Clark Chapin, I hope you're making notes of these responses because Julie and I won't be able to keep up with them. C, maybe. I couldn't help myself. Maybe. Or D, who gives a flying, who cares? Scally has retired.
Okay.
And we'll start our 30-second countdown clock. Here, ticking. I added that this morning. I obviously had too much time on my hands this morning, Julia. Hear the clock ticking down?
Yeah.
Because if I used the Jeopardy clock, we'd get a copyright strike. A, B, C, or D, yes, no, maybe, or who cares?
Yes.
From our Fozy poll.
Yeah.
For today. That's 0. Okay, let's see your answers. Oh, man, they're flying in here. They're flying in here, Julia. Oh, get rid of the music anyway, in case it's bugging anybody. Clark's, I hope, keeping count here. B and D. No, Commodore, you can't have it both ways. You're like Julia. She wants to B and D. Okay, well, I get it. She's saying B and D. I think that's fair. That's probably a fair response. Where do we... Clark is counting them up, I hope. It's interesting just to have a look. Boy, they're flowing in here. They're rolling in here. No way that's a penalty, John Hanfield says.
Clark says the bees have it.
The bees have it. Lee Bow, Tom Fishbeck says, legal or not, I just don't understand. I agree with you, Stingray. Why would they push it that hard? They didn't crash. Rubbing is racing, as they say in NASCAR. Andrew Barkworth says, they didn't crash play on. No helmets or padding here. Henry Thorpe. Hi, Henry. A long time. It's a nice lee bow in smaller boats. It's close, and you have to remember the canning keels. The boats are wider than they look. I think the IMA have some rules on this, for their event, their THEIR events to keep the boats apart. Jody Shields checking in from Bali, where his feet are up, relaxing early in his morning. Apparently Comanche is having domestic issues and Law Connect is heading towards them to stand by. Clark, I don't know that Andu turned down, but just knowing what everyone's instincts are in that situation and seeing that the helm came back up and the jib didn't break, I assumed they turned down. So that's why I think they turned down. Ed Worley says, upon review of the video today, I think that it was close, but I think there was no foul, just crouton sailing so close at the start of a long ocean race. Wow, a lot of great comments. Thank you, Ed. B's, there are a lot of B's, Clark. Holtzman says B. Homchick, B. Matt East, hi, Matt, A. Is a yes. D, Pedro would say that. Lots of B's. Okay, lots of B's. I think B's have it, don't they, Clark? B, loads of room, Graham Sweeney says. Okay. Luca Craig, no. Okay. Let's see if Clark has an official answer for us. Tom is hiccuping over that Tsunami tequila. No, I better have a little more of my eggnog. So bad for you. There's so much sugar in it. Tom Vick, it is not likely, having just tacked, they are sailing freer to build speed. Then, what? Fritz Mueller, I didn't look at the wake. That's a good point, too. Comanche down to 6 knots right now. Is that true on the on the tracker. Andu Comanche. I've zoomed that too tight. Oh, you're right. SOG, speed over the ground 6 knots. So they're in very light air, apparently, on Andu Comanche. Okay, so what's the bottom line on that, Clark? Okay, there it is. Not loads of room, but the bees still have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a no. Most people, the big fella's interview with 7 on board was riveting. John Mancino, yeah, it was. Ask Russell Crowe and Master and Commander about the weather gauge. Okay, there were a lot of F-bombs by Herman that surprised the commentator. Hi, Judy Grigors. It's a new name as well. Okay, that's so much for our poll. It sounds like most of you think it was a B. Too bad it's not going to get adjudicated by the protest committee because regardless, I mean, not only did they do 2 loops, spins, but they have retired, right, Julia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get to John Emmett's report. I think we've beaten the Sydney Hobart update and review to death. A fabulous race that is. We've got our Coach's Corner now coming up with John Emmett, who is in Argentina, getting ready for a major regatta down there, and has his final walkabout of the year, his walk and talk, as he calls it. He is in beautiful Mar del Plata in Argentina, and here's John's report.
Hi Tom, Julia and all the folks here. I thought I would take you for the last walk and talk of 2023. Probably not the best day to film, but I thought I'd show you where I live. So here we have the gym, which is literally right next door to my apartment. And I think this, having a good setup and a comfortable setup of where you live, it's really important. So here, very next building, we have a steakhouse. And I tell you, they are very good in Argentina for their meats. You have the wine bar, the Italian ice cream shop, and the coffee house, all on the same street. So within about 50 metres of where I live, and this main street is what has all the shops. In fact, it's only about another 50 metres down that way to go to the closest supermarket. So really good setup. I'm very grateful to my friend Lou for helping me sort that out. Perhaps not the best day to take you for a walk and a talk, one being very windy, and 2, a lot of stuff is closed, being the holidays. So I thought perhaps we'd just go for a little walk through the local park, and I'll carry on with the main topic of the coach's conversation, which this is the idea of being familiar with the venue. I know it's a beautiful venue here. One of the things I discovered was actually I need to wear different sunglasses here, because although it's very bright, my usual bright, I think it's called deep sea glasses from Oakley, which block out a lot of the blue light. Actually, I found it very hard to see in the waves, so I've reverted back to my cycling glasses, because obviously being able to see the wind on the water is very, very important. And there's all these small but marginal gains which makes things more comfortable. And, you know, I am grateful to friends like Neil Collingridge, who's probably going to be bringing me out stuff which I need and didn't have. So it's a small world and we all help each other. But this idea of getting familiar with venue, it's a key part of Coach's Corner. And what is interesting to me is to see which teams are here now, training, and I have been training over Christmas, even though they may have had a day or two off. I'm sure those teams will have an advantage. And it's probably quite noticeable. A lot of these are the teams which are still trying to get their Olympic qualification. And the World starts right at the beginning of next year. And then within teams, so within teams where you've got people trying to get individual selection, you can see, you know, those sailors which have come out earlier, and for sure, I think, you know, they will have a small advantage, it's hard to quantify, over their teammates. So, for example, from the Australian team, Mara's been out a bit earlier. In fact, just did some work with her in the gym today, and you know, it's not just getting over that Australian gym lag. As I say, it's really getting to know the conditions, getting familiar with the venue, and actually the local people. I'll give Lou Falacasso another shout out. Have been just so amazingly friendly, making us all feel at home here. In fact, it sort of feels the entire sailing world is staying in the same apartment block, and it's a good job too, because my Spanish is not particularly good, so yeah, they've been more than helpful. I'm gonna leave it there. Can't wait for 2024. I think there's a huge number of very exciting things happening, and this is the last walk and talk of this year, so I want to wish everybody an early, very happy New Year. Best wishes for 2024, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you, John. John Emmett, of course, John Emmett Sailing, who gives us a regular report for our shows every Tuesday and Friday, or almost every Tuesday and Friday. John Emmett Sailing, get to the front of the fleet. It's what time is it here? It's 14:36, so we're an hour and 36 minutes into the show. It's 09:36 on Wednesday morning down in Sydney, where a lot of this show has been focused, upon which the show has been focused. Gets us to the last leg. And before we do that, I think we should go to the tracker and just have a look in here. If I can back this out just a bit. There we go. Indeed, they've slowed to a crawl, 4.5 knots on Andu Comanche. And again, this is not the official tracker. This is the GIS.EE tracker, which I find to be more useful. And they're only doing 3.9 knots, excuse me, on Law Connect. And by you can see what Comanche was doing on their 2017 record run. They were doing 24.3 knots at the same time in the race, and how much further advanced they were. Alive behind them, the number 3 boat is only doing 2.2 knots. So it indeed is a bit of a slow run.
Race is going to begin again.
Yeah. It is when the breeze is. I don't know where this big southerly buster is, but it's a bit. What's going on here in the comments? Fritz Miller's got to go. See you. Happy New Year, Fritz, and everybody else. But that is about it for us. We'll get to the last. I do have a follow-up from our show on Friday. Speaking of eggnog.
Yes.
I thought we'd have this video about glögg, Julia, and proper glögg.
Vet du vad det här är? Det här är glögg. Glögg är inte glühwein. Glögg is like glühwein, but it's Scandinavian, and it's better. Sorry, Germans. Glögg has not just wine and spices. It has wine and sherry and brandy and spices and orange peel and almonds and raisins. It's like Christmas on hyperdrive. The word glögg comes from glögga, which is a verb meaning burn or maul. And now that's wonderful, but how do you say it if you're in Canada and you want some and you don't speak Swedish or Norwegian or Icelandic or Danish or whatever? Well, if you're in England, you could say glögg, and that would get away with it. But when you're in Canada, glögg becomes glurg, which is wrong on every level. Bad input, bad output. You could say glögg, I suppose. That would be not too far off. Seems like a lot of effort. You could say glögg, but I mean, I wouldn't. Glögg. You could say glögg. You could say glug, 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 glug. Just drink enough of it. Above all, I recommend not worrying too hard about it. Just make your best effort. The most important things to say are, please, could I have another cup of that? And god jul and skål.
Skål, exactly. Okay, Julia.
That's nice.
I thought we had to wrap the year up with that. That's our final video of the year. But we do have a Christmas card. We found the Sangmeister Christmas card. It had come in. You got one too, right?
I did.
So he sent one to both of us, and my card, Julia's mail and my mail, come into the same mailbox downstairs, and sometimes her lady grabs all of the mail and takes it upstairs. And that's where the card was. That's why we didn't feature it on Friday's show. From the Sangmeister family, John there in the crazy hat, and his very smart, beloved wife, Sarah, in another hat, and then up Big Pete up there in the left, Peter, who's a good fin sailor, good sailor, big boat, and otherwise, as all of them are. And that is over in the upper right is Jack, and then William, who is hilarious, all exceedingly bright there in the strange hat as well, who is often on this show. So happy, Merry Christmas to the Sangmeisters and to all of you. And to give us a break, I thought we'd only have, Julia, only one of these.
Oh, too bad.
Only one here at the end. And it's, the big thing about cows and methane. Have you seen this? Clark Chapin sent us a joke, and I had to go with it. I know how to milk them, but how do I get their methane? And this is the bovine methane study grant. He's trying to get the grant to get some money. And the cow says, it's silly. Pull my hoof. Huh?
Yeah.
It's clean.
It is.
I thought we should end the year with a clean one and not something about alcohol, but something about, motherhood and apple pie and cow's milk, cow's farts. Cow farts. That courtesy of Clark Chapin, Julia.
Yes.
Gets us, thank God, to the finish line for the year. You're a witness, Julia.
I just see a note here from Gerardo Seeliger.
Gerardo Seeliger. Gerardo. Feliz Navidad.
Yes.
Hopes to see us next year in Barcelona. Gerardo, the Finn sailor extraordinaire and a leader in our beloved sport. Julia?
Yes. I miss...
You only have to read 3 words.
Okay. Like, follow, and share. And don't forget to do that.
Perfect. Well done. And also, comments are welcome even in replay. We leave them open because we trust everybody not to be crotonic with their comments. And we also appreciate very much all of you who do support us via Patreon, right? Patreon.com/Join Sailing Illustrated. Thank you very much indeed for your support for yet another year, our 6th year of doing this. Started in June of 2017, just before the America's Cup. And we've kept it up ever since, going from 1 show a week to 2 shows a week, sometimes to 10 shows a week during Governor's Cup. Julia, any final thoughts?
No, except that Peace on Earth has special meaning this year.
Sure does. Good point. And we hope all of you have a great rest of your year. Julia, we hope you have a great rest of your year. And to all of you, very best wishes for a happy, healthy, and prosperous and safe New Year.
Indeed.
Ciao for now. Holiday schedule, reminder before we finally sign off. Tuesday the 26th, today, is our last regular show for this year. We're dark on the 29th and the 2nd, and then we'll be back on Friday the 5th of January. And indeed, ciao for now.